Okay, I'm going to walk you through our hip hinge, and then we're also going to go into today using like a stick. Today we're using a PVC pipe to start to prepare what should be happening in the upper body, in our shoulder, if we're actually holding any weight. So this is a nice kind of body weight like exercise to practice your hip hinge. I'm going to go over all of the kind of key points of things that you need to feel, one point at a time. Okay. So let's kind of go over just what should the hip hinge look like initially. So I'm going to give you a side view. You want to keep your feet pretty underneath your hip. They don't have to be exactly under. Some people like a little narrow, some people like a little bit wider. You just don't want to be too wide outside of your hip when we're working on our hip hinge going into our Romanian deadlift. So the key point here is maintaining that activation of the hamstring and letting it lengthen, while as we go into the hinge position, allowing the glutes to lengthen and remain pretty relaxed. So before we do anything, you always want to make sure that even just in standing position, our key points is keeping the rib stacked over the pelvis. So remember, we want the sensation of maintaining length through our spine without allowing the rib to flare upwards, which will cause our chest to start to direct up, which will overarch my back. So we need to balance lengthening and extension through our spine and maintaining enough core activation in the front to keep the bottom ribs down so that they stack over the pelvis. Your knees are going to stay soft. We're already going to have that sensation of activation of those hamstring. And when we talk about the feet, you always want to make sure that your weight is pretty even throughout your feet, from the front of the foot to the heel, inside edge and outside edge, evenly distributed, so that we're not riding on the edges of front, back, or either side of the feet. So going into the hinge pattern, you want to maintain that length. Knees are soft. We're going to start to bring the chest down and the butt we're going to send back. The majority of the bend is happening at the hip. I want my knee to pretty much stay stacked over my ankle or even just like my midfoot, but I'm never going to allow my knee to start heading towards my toe. So remember, when we do a hip hinge, my hip is doing the main motion. I'm maintaining that length so that my spine stays in neutral. And then we want to actually do a little bit of a pause just for this particular exercise, and we're going to do our breath check. If I inhale in through my nose, you still want to feel that you're getting that back expansion. And then when we come up, we're going to still maintain that hamstring engagement, but our glutes are allowed to contract, and we're going to come up into that standing position. The important thing is making sure that we're not coming up and hyperextending. Or most common is you may see someone come up, they have a good squeeze of the glutes, and then they overshoot and the hips actually travel in front of the body. That is how we end up hurting our back. So that is going to be our hip hinge. Now, if we add in the stick or the PVC pipe, we're going to start talking about what's going to be happening in the arms. So this is just an exercise to get you acquainted with what type of tension that you're creating in your shoulder. Anytime, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether it's going to be exercise for my legs or exercise in my core, is if I have something in my hand, whether I'm holding it and I'm about to push, pull, or lift, we always want to have tension in our shoulder to connect our arms into our body, into our core. So you're going to take that pipe, and what you're going to do is, if you can kind of see, my elbows are straight and I'm already thinking about plugging in my shoulder into my body. I'm going to do that by pushing my shoulders down away from my ears. There is a little bit of a squeeze of my shoulder blades together, and as soon as I do that, we're creating that extension tension in our back. So remember, when I extend my back, I'm thinking about that length. But if I don't have any control of my core, my body will just continue to extend with no control in the front. So when I create that shoulder tension, we really have to think about connecting our core to pull those ribs down so we don't let the chest flare forward. So going beyond that, you're going to take that bar in your hand, and if we think about my elbow facing my body, I want you to remember this cue of bending the bar. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start to rotate our arm to expose the elbow as if we want the elbow to rotate forward and face forward. But because the bar is stopping me, I'm just creating that tension into my shoulder. And you should feel it being created into your shoulder. So I'm going to maintain that tension, and we're going to combine that into our hip hinge. I'm going to give you a side view. So my core is engaged. I'm going to lock my shoulders into place by bending the bar. And I'm going to create a little bit of tension in my hamstring and my glutes so my knees are soft. And then what you're going to do is you're going to push your knees apart. And even though I'm pushing my knees apart to activate the outer part of my glutes, my feet still stay pretty planted with inside edge and outside edge even. So I have good contact with my big toe. And then as you go down, the bar is nice because what you're going to do is you're going to just run that bar down the thigh. So knees stay over my ankle, butt gets sent back. I'm going to pause. I'm going to breathe. Do I feel it in my back? If I do, I know that I'm in alignment. And then when I come up, I'm going to maintain the tension in my shoulders, lengthen my spine. My knees are being driven apart. And now I'm going to actually squeeze my glutes to bring myself back to the standing position. And again, we want to stop in neutral. We don't want to overshoot that extension when we're doing our hip hinge, adding in what should be happening for your arms for our traditional RDL.